Go right ahead.
Sorry. I was interested in the lessons that you've learned, and also wonder if, from the days when you started out in research, how you've managed to sustain your enthusiasm and vision for a long-term project. We live in a world where there's such short-term focus. I'd be interested in lessons that you can pass on and that we can share in terms of maintaining through the ups and downs.
I should point out that that's probably a particularly good question from Vicki. Vicki and I went to college together, used to be Vicki Andrade. So our longest vision was how long it would take us to get to the tombs that day. So we have taken much longer visions over time. So I don't know. I mean, I actually think all of us think long term. I mean, how many people don't think about their children and where they're going to go and what we all have that. It's just having the space to let those voices in and to think beyond the moment and to feel beyond the moment. And what's allowed me to do that most probably is my experience of meeting the people in Africa and in Haiti, where we also did work, and in China, where we also did work, in Vietnam, and seeing where they are and where they could get and where we know they could get. There is this notion of Africa's a basket case and a bunch of poor, uneducated people. That's not the reality. I mean, they're no different. There's no difference. And to see where they could get, to see where we could get in our daily lives, to get to the next step, that's probably what drives me the most. And to some degree, President Bush keeps me doing that. I mean, think big, think big, think big. No small ball. Think big, think big. So it's probably a whole variety of things.
Yes, right here.
I actually have 3 questions for you. The first one is, who were your favorite philosophers, or who was your favorite philosopher? Number 2, more seriously, when it comes to global shift in economics, are we seeing more penetration? Because in development and various other forms of investment, so to speak, China is definitely expanding and definitely going into Africa. Are there any initiatives for China, India, and the emerging economic powers in the world to take a role, and a serious role, especially with India being one of the hotbeds of generics? The third question was, did you originally go into the Foreign Service School so you wouldn't have to take those sciences?
Partially, yes, actually. But then I realized macroeconomics was kind of a science, and language wasn't so much fun either. On the first one, it's Aristotle. All we have left are, as you know, written fragments. We don't actually have his real thoughts. But from those, I mean, I think there's an enormous humility, humanity, and understanding of people in a way that is just I find very moving. Man is a social animal. I mean, it's just really, really beautiful things, and the gradations of knowledge to understand. Aristotle's probably still my favorite philosopher. If you count Jesus as a philosopher, then I'd count him too. The India-China question is actually a fascinating one. And there's a real push and pull, especially there's a real tug in the United States always around these issues. So when the language for PEPFAR was renewing our law was moving forward, there's actually, I love the way legislators do things. They never want to say, we don't want to give any money to China, India, or Russia. So they put someone tried to put an amendment in that said no country that has a nuclear program or a satellite program can receive funding through this program. Well, there are only a couple that have that. So there's this sense of, and I think a real one, that our role is not to be providing money to India and China anymore, even though we have historically. So how do you have a relationship as they're emerging as G20 powers, as real powers in the world, who have a lot of money? I mean, and a lot of our money, actually. Unfortunately, China's engagement right now in the global world is not particularly productive, in my view, anyway. It really is a grab for resources, and that compassion, generosity, that sense of caring for brothers and sisters that I think is inherent in our work and development as a people, as the American people, I think in the European approach, is not there. It really is resources. So they just signed a $43 billion deal in Nigeria to basically take their oil, and for that they will give them roads and hospitals. Chinese come in and build all those roads and hospitals, doesn't actually create any local jobs, and then they go out. But I don't mean that as full criticism, because they're reacting to the world from their perspective. So how do you engage them in a way that all contributes in the same way? And I think there are ways to do that. We could start working with them in the countries so that we have joint programs, so that we're putting health facilities or training people are around where they're building the roads and the buildings, that we're targeting our programs where these are, and we can work together to do that. And in doing that, I think methods would change and the governments would change. We can, in the end, even everything we're doing in development for health, you have to have economic growth, or this cannot go on forever. We've got to have economic growth, sustainability. We don't have a system appropriately where we can effectively compete with the Chinese, because they have basically their companies are public and they can offer the roads and buildings because the government will pay those billions of dollars. Our companies can't pay for roads and buildings and still make a profit. The Chinese don't need to. So we could develop programs so that we partnered internally so that we would match our development. We would go build the roads and buildings, but venture capitalists and other investors would go invest to produce oil or mine. So we're stuck in an approach to development and an approach to working with others that's 50 years old. We need to jump a little bit ahead to the modern world, change our structure and our culture and approach to development, which is one of the things we're working on, a new global architecture for development that would try to respond to these realities in a more equitable and real fashion.
Thank you. Welcome back for your reunion. I want to welcome everybody back for their reunions. And thanks for letting us get started with such a wonderful conversation. All yours. Thanks. Thank you.
Just in closing, I'd like to say I think we all feel very fortunate as a community, as an institution, and as a society to have alumni leaders like Ambassador Diboll and President DeGioia. Let's have a round of applause for them. Thank you both very much. I encourage you to enjoy the rest of your weekend, your alumni reunion. Welcome home and have a great weekend. Thank you all.